Hi guys, I'm Brody and welcome to my channel. Now, in today's video, I've got an awesome Warlock build for you, which gives a ton of firepower, offers great survivability, and we're doing a ton of nade damage too. It's great for solo endgame, playing with another fire team alike. Elemental wows make this build slightly more powerful, but I'll include a charge with light build as well, just for people who don't have the mods. Welcome and thank you to all the recent subscribers, and thank you for the continued support from my regulars. I'm still very new to all this, and I love hearing your feedback in the comment section down below, so keep it coming. Now let's get into the build, give it a full teardown, and see how we can optimize it to its full potential. I started up my stream last night with the intention to work on this build I had in mind, but then I opened an exotic engram from the season pass, and when I saw the exotic I got out of it, I thought, ooh, okay, and completely changed my mind on what I wanted to do. I originally wanted to do a melee build, but what I ended up with I think is far better for a lot of reasons. Solo players can take into endgame, you're also providing a lot of support for your other teammates, and it's really fun to use. So as you can see, we're doing a solo last sector, and we've got not one, but two turrets helping us out here, and damage numbers are flying around everywhere. And after a lot of tinkering, a lot of testing, messing around with different mods and weapons, let's have a look what I came up with. First things first, we're using Stormcaller and Chaos Reach. That's optional, I just prefer Chaos Reach. Use what you want for your super ability here. Now you want to be using the healing rift for this, especially for harder content. This is just great for survivability, helping teammates out, but it's optional. I just think this works better with this build. Jump's completely optional, use what you want, and for the melee we're going for Ball Lightning. This has got a nice amount of range to it, and whilst we're amplified, Ball Lightning releases additional lightning strikes before detonating, which causes a nice bit of extra damage. We're going to be using Pulse Grenade for this build because it's super powerful and does a nice area of effect damage, and thanks to a fragment we'll be using in a minute, increases that area of effect damage. We're going to get ionic traces from it and going to chain lightning everywhere. So for the aspects, first one is Electrostatic Mind. Defeating targets with arc abilities or defeating jolted or blinded targets create an ionic trace. Collecting an ionic trace makes you amplified. We're going to be creating ionic traces non-stop, and we're always going to be amplified, and the reason we want to be amplified is because it makes that grenade more powerful. And not only that, moving on to our second aspect, Arc Soul. Cast your rift to create an Arc Soul that fires at targets in front of you. Allies can pass through your rift to get an Arc Soul. Your rift charges faster when allies are near, but this is the reason we want to be amplified. While amplified, your Arc Souls are supercharged and gain increased fire rate. So this thing's going to fire more rapidly and do a ton more damage because of this. And this synergizes perfectly with our chest piece, which I'll get to in a sec. But first, let's take a look at the fragments. First fragment, Spark of Ions. Defeating a jolted target creates an ionic trace. This is our first method of creating ionic traces, and we'll get on to how we're going to jolt targets in a sec. Spark of Discharge. Arc weapon final blows have a chance to create an ionic trace. This is our second method of creating ionic traces. Third fragment, Spark of Magnitude. Your lingering arc grenades have an extended duration. This is going to make our pulse grenade tick a few more times before it disappears. And finally, Spark of Shock. Your arc grenades jolt targets. So our grenades are going to jolt targets and trigger Spark of Ions, which is going to give us an ionic trace. Our arc weapon final blow is going to create ionic traces, and thanks to perks on our weapons, we're going to get extra ionic traces. The ionic traces are going to keep us amplified and keep our Arc Soul doing as much damage as possible. Now the Arc Soul is our first turret. The second turret we're going to get is from the exotic pulse rifle, No Time to Explain. We want to trigger Time Slip. At 10 stacks of Rewind Again, a small portal will open, shooting bullets from an alternative timeline version of this weapon. Precision hits extend the portal's duration. So this paired with our Arc Soul and being amplified so our Arc Soul is firing at an increased rate is going to be brilliant for keeping DPS going, destroying ads around us, and it means while we're reloading we're still doing a ton of damage. Now let's go over and see how all this synergizes perfectly with our chest piece. We're using the Sanguine Alchemy, and the perk is Blood Magic. Weapon kills while standing in any rift, pause the rift countdown, extending its duration. Further kills maintain and extend the length of the pause. So we're going to use our healing rift to give us an Arc Soul, and then we're going to pull out No Time to Explain, go for precision hits to get the turret proc, so every kill we have while in this rift is going to pause and extend its duration. This is brilliant for bossing, ad clearing, and pretty much anything you throw at it. It's worth noting here that the Arc Soul itself doesn't actually pause or extend the time of the rift, but the turret from No Time to Explain does. So while you're stood in the rift, even if you're not killing things and the No Time to Explain turret is, that rift is going to be paused and extend the duration. And while you're stood in the rift, The Arc Soul's lifespan is constantly being refreshed. It's only when you leave the Rift the timer for Arc Soul starts going down. Now let's look at how we can fully optimize the build using different mods and then some weapons we can use to optimize it as well. First of all, on the helmet, we're going to go for bountiful wows. This means that any elemental wow that we spawn, we're going to get double of. These wows are then going to provide us with benefits from other mods we'll get to in a second, but more than anything, give us ability regen so we can get our grenade back, not only from ionic traces, but from elemental wows too. We want ability uptime to be as much as we can so we can throw our grenade, jolt things, chain lightning everywhere, create more ionic traces, keep the ball rolling, get our rift back. Everything just comes into one, and this is really going to help with that. Secondly, we're using Harmonic Siphon. Rapid weapon final blows with damage matching your subclass type create an orb of power. Orbs of power are going to come in handy later. And then ashes to assets. We're going to be throwing grenades quite a bit. These grenades are going to give us ionic traces and wows to give us more grenades to throw, and those grenade kills are going to give us super energy because of this, reducing the cooldown of Chaos Reach. On our arms, we're going to be using Font of Might. So when we pick up an Arc Elemental wow, we're going to get 25% weapon damage to our Arc weapons on top of any other weapon damage perk we've got going. And then I'm using double Bolstering Detonation. Grant class ability energy when you cause damage with a grenade. Again, we're going to be throwing grenades quite a lot. We want our class ability to regenerate so we can activate our Arc Soul, give us the nice recovery, and stand in it and get no time to explain turret proc. Get those kills up and keep that rift there for as long as possible. And on our chest piece, we're going to use Seeking Wows. Whilst we're stood in our rift, these wows are just going to come to us and we can throw grenades, get the ability regen whilst we're shooting and whilst our two turrets are shooting. We can just focus on our target and the wow's going to come to us, and use whatever protection mods you need for whatever kind of gameplay you're doing. On our boots, we're going to use Elemental Ordnance. Defeating the combatant with a grenade spawns an elemental wow that matches your subclass energy type. This is how we're going to get our elemental wows, and this is what's going to proc Font of Might and give us ability regen. This is where the orbs of power come in handy. Recuperation. Replenish health each time you pick up an orb of power. And innovation. Reduce grenade cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power. You see an orb of power on the floor, run over it, pick it up, and then crack onto your next target. Also, it's worth mentioning here, whilst you're stood in the rift, I also love pulling out an LMG, and with this season's mods, you've got Machine Gun Holster and Machine Gun Scavenger, so these are worth equipping if you're going to run an LMG. Class mod, we've got another Elemental Ordnance, just to increase the number of wows we're getting from our grenades, on top of bountiful wows. We should constantly be proccing 3 or 4 wows a time here, using Amped Up to stay amplified longer, and Bomber, reduce grenade cooldown when using your class ability. These all synergize perfect. Our grenade's going to reduce our class ability cooldown, we're going to use our class ability, and that's going to reduce our grenade cooldown thanks to Bolstering Detonation, which I mentioned earlier on the arms. Couple more mods worth mentioning for harder content. Defeating combatants affected by Arc debuff spawns an ionic trace. Not really necessary because we're spawning a ton of these constantly anyway, especially with some weapons we'll use in a sec. And lightning strikes twice after throwing an Arc grenade, gain increased grenade recharge for a short time. Arc final blows extend the duration of this benefit. That's nice to have, but again, not really needed, especially for 7 energy points. Got bad amplitude, damaging the champion with an Arc ability causes the champion to become jolted. This is nice for harder content. And also surge detonators. Arc grenades disrupt combatants, stunning them, delaying ability regeneration and lowering combatants' damage output. This is strong against overload champions, but these are all situational mods. Use them as and when you need them. Now I'm a Titan main, so my stats aren't perfect on my Warlock. Ideally, you're going to want 100 resilience. You want recovery up as much as possible because this is going to help your healing rift cooldown time. And then discipline you want up as much as possible too, so we can take advantage of those grenades to get the wows, to get the ability regen and proc Font of Might. Now I mentioned earlier, I love using machine guns with this build. You can just stand there, kill loads of ads, which is going to cause a ton of ionic traces. The 7th Seraph machine gun is pretty powerful, and Disruption Break is a pretty cool trait to have too. Breaking an enemy's shield with this weapon makes them more vulnerable to kinetic damage for a brief time. Now this will give you 50% more damage to your No Time to Explain pulse rifle for 5.5 seconds. However, in my testing, this is a bit of a pain to proc. So in the end, I went with the Swarm. Mine's got a Vorpal weapon on. That with boss spec is going to give you an extra 17.7% damage to champions and bosses, which in my opinion is just nicer to use because you haven't got to proc anything. It's just free damage there ready to go. And this is the last time I'm going to mention it, I swear, but explosive light on a rocket launcher is fantastic and so underrated. Not only does this increase the blast radius up to 100, you're getting a 25% damage buff to this weapon after picking up an Orb of Power, and that stacks with Font of Might. So if you've got Font of Might active and you picked up an Orb of Power, you've now got 50% weapon damage bonus to this weapon, which has 100% blast radius. So not only is it really powerful, the best part is, whilst you've got a full super, you can still pick up Orbs of Power and get the benefits from the mods we've got on our legs, like Innovation and Recuperation. Whilst you've got a full super, you can still pick up orbs and proc these mods. I know I say it in all my videos, a lot of people don't know that. And for the special weapon, I love using the new sidearm. Not only is it arc, it's got a chance to drop with Volt Shot on too. And Volt Shot is brilliant, and it's going to help us do loads of AoE damage, jolt targets, but more importantly, it's going to create Ionic Traces. Killing things with this will actually spawn 2 Ionic Traces because it stacks with the fragments we've got on. I highly recommend using this with Volt Shot on if you can. Otherwise, something with Demolitionist on will be great because that's going to recharge your grenades even quicker too. And for the Charge of Light version of the build, swap out Bountiful Wows for firepower, swap out Font of Might for stacks on stacks. This is going to give us an extra stack of Charge of Light for every stack that we gain. Swap out Seeking Wows for swift charge, become Charged with Light by rapidly defeating combatants with pulse rifles, sidearms and submachine guns. We're using 2 of the 3 there, so that's what's going to make us become Charged with Light. Swap out Elemental Ordnance for another firepower mod to give us even more grenade energy back when we throw our grenade. And on the Warlock bond, you can either put another firepower mod on here, charged up or supercharged, just to make sure you've always got those stacks ready to go when you throw your grenade. Also, something really cool as well, when the turret from No Time to Explain kills any adds or kills any enemy, that counts as a pulse rifle kill and will make you become Charged with Light. So whilst I was testing this, the amount of times I was just reloading my weapon and the turret was getting kills and we were becoming Charged with Light without even trying. Nice little addition to this Charged with Light version of the build. I think that's everything, guys. If you've got any questions, please ask. I'm always reading your comments and happy to help out in any way, and I love hearing your feedback too. I'm nearly at 2,000 subscribers, so thank you so much. Once I reach 2,000 subscribers, I'm thinking of doing a video to introduce myself a bit better and do a tour of my games room and my setup, go over all the equipment I use. So if that's something you're interested in, click like, click subscribe, click the little bell notification so you can see when my content goes up. Thanks again for all your continued support. I stream on Twitch most weekends, so if you want to come and play some games with me or just chill out in the chat, you're more than welcome. You guys take care. See you again soon. Bye bye.